The assignment board flickered to life in the academy's main hall, and the usual noise died like someone had cut power to the room. That was the first warning. Cadets from 20 different species crowded beneath the holographic display, all of them wearing the same gray training uniform, all of them pretending they were not desperate to see what kind of mission would decide their next ranking. Usually, assignment days were loud. Moridan cadets bragged before reading details. Taurian cadets argued over tactical value. Vraxians calculated survival odds out loud because apparently anxiety sounded better with mathematics attached. Humans, in general, made jokes at inappropriate times. But when the board finished loading and the mission title appeared, nobody joked. Vought 7. The name hung above the hall in cold blue light. Even the older cadets went quiet. Ryan Cole pushed through the crowd with a protein bar in one hand and the expression of someone who had arrived late because breakfast mattered more than terror. He was not the top cadet in his year. Not even close. His tactical theory scores were aggressively average. His quantum mechanics record was a crime scene. His diplomatic simulations had once ended with an instructor writing, "Cadet Cole appears honest to a degree that may create international incidents." But survival modules? Field adaptation? Improvised shelter? Resource identification? Ryan Cole was either brilliant or badly socialized by wilderness instructors. The academy had not decided which. He squinted at the board. Solo retrieval mission. Abandoned research station. Classified data cores. Hostile biosphere. No scheduled extraction. Ryan chewed once, swallowed, and grinned. "I'll take it." The silence became heavier. A Taurian cadet with 4 arms turned slowly toward him. "You understand what Vought 7 is?" Ryan nodded. "Yeah. 12 missions sent." "I read that." 0 returned. "Also read that." "The planet kills everything." Ryan looked back at the board. Then shrugged. "Sounds like a challenge." Nobody laughed. He glanced around. "Come on. Abandoned station, rough terrain, classified cores, no pickup schedule. That's basically camping with extra paperwork." A Vraxian took one full step away from him. Then another. As if human stupidity might spread through proximity. Ryan pointed at the mission slot. "Do I sign here or is there a dramatic warning speech first?" There was, in fact, a dramatic warning speech. It came 1 hour later in Commander Hayes' office. Hayes was human too, which meant Ryan had expected at least some cultural support. Instead, the commander looked like a man already regretting every administrative form that had led them here. He sat behind his desk, gray at the temples, tired around the eyes, and pulled up the Vought 7 mission file on the wall screen. "Cole," he said, "I need you to actually think." Ryan sat across from him. "I do that sometimes." "Try now." The first image appeared. Purple forests so dense they looked like oceans from orbit. Then the zoom clarified bones scattered beneath the canopy. Big bones. Some still wearing armor. Hayes swiped to the next file. Steaming rivers. Green lightning storms. Black rock fields where something moved beneath the surface in thermal scans. Vought 7 is not a training wilderness. It is not your colony summer camp. It is a hostile biosphere with atmospheric toxins, unstable weather, acidic water, aggressive pack fauna, fungal blooms, and enough unknown variables to make a risk analyst quit and open a bakery. Ryan leaned forward. "What kind of bakery?" Hayes stared at him. Ryan raised both hands. "Thinking. Sorry." The commander continued. The last recovery team lasted 4 hours before signal loss. Fully equipped. Environmental suits. Military escort. Automated drones. Gone. Ryan studied the map. "Where did they land?" Hayes paused. "What?" "Landing zone. They went straight for the station?" "Yes." "Through the valley?" "Yes." Ryan winced. "That looks like a funnel." "It was the safest approach on paper." "Paper doesn't have predators." Hayes leaned back. "You are focusing on predators. They move. Terrain doesn't. The atmosphere will burn your lungs." "How badly?" Hayes blinked once. How badly? Compared to what? Compared to normal air, Cole. Ryan gestured at the data. Normal for whom? The commander pulled up atmospheric analysis. Ryan read it carefully. His expression changed from cheerful to interested, which Hayes found significantly worse. Oxygen mix is low but usable. Irritants are high. Spores could be rough. Rough? Like allergy season. Hayes closed his eyes briefly. The water is acidic enough to dissolve Zakarian chitin in under a minute. Zakarians have calcium-heavy exoskeletons. Acid loves that stuff. That is not comforting. Ryan scrolled lower. For human skin, this looks like badly balanced pool water with anger issues. I wouldn't soak in it, but filtered and treated? Maybe fine. You are actually serious? Ryan looked up. Yes, sir. Command expects whoever takes this mission to die. Regulations require an attempt because the data cores are classified, but nobody expects recovery. Ryan's grin faded slightly. Not from fear. From focus. Then send someone who doesn't need the planet to be nice. Hayes looked at him for a long moment. Ryan continued. I'm not the best pilot. I'm not the best tactician. I'm definitely not the guy you want explaining quantum anything. But I grew up on a frontier colony where weather could kill you 6 ways before lunch. Bears near the ridgeline. Floods in spring. Winters that froze bad decisions into the ground. He tapped the Vought 7 map. I know how to live in places that don't care if I live. That was the first moment Hayes stopped arguing like a commander and started listening like a human who understood exactly what Ryan meant. Still, he tried one last time. This is not about confidence. I know. You may not come back. I know. You may die alone on a planet that everyone else was smart enough to fear. Ryan looked at the purple forest on the screen. Then at the research station marker pulsing faintly inside it. If nobody expects me back anyway, then I've got no reputation to protect. Hayes sighed. That was the sound of a man losing a fight to both logic and terrible personality traits. Fine. I approve the assignment. Ryan smiled again. Thank you, sir. But listen to me carefully. You are not going there to prove humans are tough. Ryan stood. No, sir. You are going there to retrieve those cores and survive. Same plan. It had better be. 2 days later, Ryan stood in the equipment bay while the quartermaster watched him pack with increasing emotional distress. The standard hostile environment survival kit sat open and mostly ignored. Ryan took pieces from it, sure. Med scanner. Emergency beacon. Basic field rifle. Universal cutter. Then he added his own gear. Fishing line. Hooks. A compact folding rod. Waterproof matches. Fire starter. Earth-grade purification tablets. A small cookpot. Protein bars that looked capable of outliving civilization. Solar charger. Cordage. A repair torp. And at the bottom, wrapped carefully in cloth, his father's old camping knife. The quartermaster clicked his mandibles. Cadet Cole, those items are not regulation for hostile biosphere deployment. Ryan zipped one side pocket. Regulation gear assumes I'm fighting the planet. Yes. I'm planning to live on it. The quartermaster stared. Ryan added, different skill set. Why do you require fishing equipment? Because rivers usually have fish. On Vought 7, rivers have chemical hazards and aquatic predators. Even better. Means fewer amateurs fishing. The quartermaster made a sound his translator refused to process. Ryan looked up. You got any seasoning in stores? The quartermaster walked away. Other cadets came to say goodbye before launch. Most looked uncomfortable, like they were attending a funeral where the deceased had packed snacks. One Vraxian placed a tentacle gently on Ryan's shoulder. You are braver than I understood, human. May your ancestors welcome you swiftly. Ryan nodded slowly. Thanks. I think. Commander Hayes appeared near the transport bay doors just before departure. Cole. A word. They stepped aside. Hayes handed him a small data chip. Personal emergency beacon. Not regulation. If you mention it, I deny everything. If things go completely wrong, activate it. Ryan pocketed it. I appreciate it. I mean it. So do I. Hayes studied him. How are you this calm? Ryan looked toward the pod waiting under launch lights. Then back at his commander. Because everyone keeps telling me Vought 7 will kill me. But the files say it has air I can breathe, water I can treat, wildlife I can read, and enough biomass to support an ecosystem. He smiled. That's not hell, sir. That's Earth before plumbing. Hayes did not smile. Ryan continued anyway. My grandfather used to say the difference between an adventure and a disaster is whether you learn fast enough. I thought the saying was attitude. He had a lot of sayings. Some were better than others. The launch alarm sounded. Ryan picked up his pack. I'll get the cores. Hayes nodded once. And come back. Ryan stepped into the transport pod. Or set up camp until somebody remembers extraction is useful. The hatch sealed. 6 hours later, the pod hit Vought 7's atmosphere. Alarms screamed immediately. Atmospheric toxicity. Radiation fluctuation. Predator signatures. Thermal instability. Corrosive moisture. 17 ways to die listed by a computer voice that sounded proud of its vocabulary. Ryan muted the audio. Through the viewport, purple forest rose beneath him, vast and wild and completely uninterested in Academy fear. He saw rivers. High ridges. Possible caves. Canopy density. Wind direction. Shelter options. The pod punched through the trees, branches scraping across the hull. Retrothrusters fired late. Impact hit hard enough to rattle his teeth. The pod bounced twice, plowed through violet moss, then settled with a groan. Silence followed. Only cooling metal. Distant rain. Something howling far beyond the trees. Ryan checked his gear. Secure. He grabbed his rifle, shouldered his pack, and opened the hatch. Warm, humid air rushed in. It smelled like wet earth, rotting leaves, and large animals that owned the place. His lungs burned a little. Nothing dramatic. High-altitude jog mixed with bad pollen. Ryan stepped onto purple moss. It squelched under his boots. He looked around at trees taller than towers and shadows deep enough to hide anything. Then he smiled. All right, he said to the planet. Let's see what you've got. Ryan's first hour on Vought 7 was mostly spent proving the Academy wrong and then immediately proving it had not been entirely stupid. The air did not kill him. That was the good news. It burned at the back of his throat, made his eyes water, and gave him the unpleasant sensation of breathing inside a greenhouse that had been abandoned by responsible adults, but his lungs kept working. So that was fine. Fine by human standards. Which, he suspected, was the part most species kept misunderstanding. The moss under his boots gave slightly with every step, purple and springy, releasing a sharp mineral smell whenever he crushed it. The trees above him were enormous, their trunks thick as buildings, their upper branches tangling together into a canopy that turned daylight into violet dusk. Beautiful. Also terrible visibility. Ryan looked at his compass, then at the mission map on his wrist display. Research station, 43 kilometers northeast. Terrain difficulty, severe. Predator density, catastrophic. Estimated survival probability, insulting. He snorted. Rude. The pod behind him ticked as it cooled. A thin green drizzle had begun falling from the canopy, pattering against the hull and sizzling faintly where it hit exposed hot metal. Ryan held out one gloved hand. The droplets collected across the fabric. No burn-through. He touched one drop carefully to the back of his wrist. A sting. Mild. Like lemon juice in a scratch. Okay, he muttered. Rain has opinions. He marked it in his field notes. Corrosive precipitation, uncomfortable, not immediately dangerous to human skin. Avoid prolonged exposure. Protect gear. That was the real issue. Humans were flexible. Electronics were dramatic. He pulled a tarp from his pack, rigged a quick cover over the pod's access panel, then stripped useful parts from the landing module, battery cell, emergency cord, reflective blanket, extra sealant strips, a compact field shovel, and one metal side panel he could use later as a heat reflector or crude shield. The Academy Survival Manual advised leaving the pod intact as a beacon point. Ryan left the beacon. Took everything else worth carrying. His grandfather had taught him never to trust a machine to remain useful just because instructions said it was important. By late afternoon, he found a clearing nearly a kilometer from the crash site. Not perfect. Nothing wild ever was. But it had three things he liked. A massive tree trunk at his back. A shallow rise that would drain rain away from camp. And sight lines wide enough that anything large approaching would have to make noise unless it could fly, crawl underground, teleport, or deliberately ruin his day. He dug a fire pit first. Always fire before comfort. Then a drainage trench. Then shelter. The Academy top became a lean-to against the tree. Local branches formed the frame. The reflective blanket lined the inside to hold heat. He hung gear from high branches to keep it off the damp ground and away from anything small enough to steal, chew, dissolve, or develop an emotional attachment to it. By the time the light faded, the camp looked rough but functional. Functional mattered. A comfortable camper thought clearly. An uncomfortable camper made stupid decisions and then blamed nature. Ryan started a fire with waterproof matches and dry inner bark shaved from a fallen branch. The smoke rose thick and blue, twisting strangely beneath the canopy before finding a path upward. Good. Smoke movement gave wind direction. Wind direction mattered when predators hunted by scent. He boiled stream water in the cookpot, filtered it twice, then added purification tablets. The water smelled metallic and sharp. He took a careful sip. Waited. Nothing. Another sip. His stomach did not declare independence. Good enough. Dinner was half a protein bar warmed over the fire, which improved it from construction material to technically food. He had just taken his third bite when the forest went quiet. Not silent. Quiet. There was a difference. Night insects stopped in a ring around the clearing. High branches stilled. Something beyond the firelight was breathing. Large lungs. Slow rhythm. Ryan did not freeze. Freezing was prey language. He did not spin. Spinning was panic language. He calmly set the protein bar down, reached for his rifle, and stood in one slow movement. Not aiming. Not threatening. Ready. I can hear you, he said. His voice sounded steady. Good. This is my camp. I'm not looking for trouble. A branch cracked. Then another. Something massive pushed through the undergrowth. At first, Ryan's brain tried to call it a bear. That was wrong, but useful. Earth brains loved comparison when reality got creative. The creature was nearly 4 meters long, heavy through the shoulders, covered in dark blue-black fur with a secondary set of smaller forelimbs tucked near its chest. Its head was broad, jaws too wide, teeth too many, eyes reflecting green in the firelight. Its claws dug grooves through the moss. Ryan knew the file name. Ursanthrax. Apex territorial predator. Known to attack military patrols. Documented armor penetration capability. Do not approach. Do not feed. Do not attempt behavioral contact. Ryan lowered the rifle slightly. Hey there, big guy. The Ursanthrax growled. The sound vibrated in Ryan's ribs. Yeah. Fair. Strange animal in your territory. Weird smell. Fire. Metal. Lots of reasons to be annoyed. The creature took one step closer. Ryan did not step back. He made himself taller, shoulders broad, body angled but not confrontational. Back home, his father had taught him that large predators asked questions with distance. If you ran, you answered wrong. If you attacked, you answered worse. If you looked like prey, the conversation ended. Ryan slowly reached into his pocket. Here's the deal. I'm not prey. The creature's head lowered. I'm also not competition. His fingers found the remaining half of the protein bar. I'm just passing through, and I pay camp taxes. He tossed the bar gently into the space between them. Not at the creature. Never throw food at a predator's face unless your hobby is becoming a cautionary tale. The Ursanthrax flinched at the motion, then sniffed. Its nostrils widened. Ryan slowly sat back down beside the fire, keeping his movements clear and predictable. That's yours if you want it. The animal watched him. Then the protein bar. Then him again. It stepped forward with shocking silence for something that large, lowered its head, and swallowed the bar in one bite. Ryan nodded. Yeah, they are dense. We make them for emergencies and people with no respect for flavor. The Ursanthrax sat back on its haunches. Still watching. Less growling. Good. Not safe. Better. Ryan picked up his own dinner again. Slowly. You can stay there. I'll stay here. We both make good choices. The creature circled the camp once. Ryan tracked it without staring too hard. It stopped just outside the firelight, folded its massive body onto the moss, and continued watching him with glowing green eyes. Ryan leaned back against the tree. I'm calling you Bruno. The creature blinked. You look like a Bruno. The first night passed in short pieces of sleep. Ryan woke every hour to feed the fire, check wind direction, and confirm Bruno had not decided to investigate whether humans were crunchy. Bruno remained where he was. By morning, the predator was still there. The sunlight filtered purple through the canopy. Ryan stretched, winced at soreness from the pod impact, and began his routine. Water. Fire. Gear check. Breakfast. He tossed a small piece of ration toward Bruno without ceremony. Morning. Bruno sniffed it, ate it, and made a low rumble that did not sound immediately murderous. Progress. Ryan spent the day moving northeast. Slowly. No hero pace. No straight-line stupidity. He mapped edible-looking plants but did not eat them yet. He tested water sources. Marked animal trails. Avoided thorn clusters that smelled chemical enough to make his nose protest. Bruno followed at a distance. 30 meters at first. Then 20. Always downwind. Always watching. Ryan spoke to him occasionally, mostly because humans did that when alone in dangerous places and because silence made his thoughts too loud. See, the Academy thinks this place is impossible. But impossible usually means nobody asked the right questions. Bruno huffed. Exactly. By the third day, Ryan had learned 3 critical things. The spores caused sneezing and mild irritation unless disturbed in large clouds. The acidic streams were drinkable after filtering and treatment, provided he avoided algae blooms. And Bruno's body language was better than any Academy censor. Ears forward, curiosity. Fur ridge lifted, nearby movement. Low rumble, something larger than Ryan should ignore. Full stop with head tilted left. Absolutely do not continue that direction unless bored with living. That last one saved him from walking into a nest of pale 6-legged things that clicked their teeth together in unison from under a fallen log. Ryan backed away slowly. Good call, buddy. Bruno looked smug. By day 4, they shared cooked fish. Ryan caught them with his folding rod in a slow bend of the river. The fish were silver-purple, ugly, and surprisingly tasty after cooking over coals. Bruno swallowed his whole and then stared at Ryan's portion. No, Ryan said. Mine. Bruno stared harder. Ryan sighed and tossed him half. This is how alliances collapse. By day 5, Ryan set up the communication camera on a stable rock beside the fire. Bruno lay nearby, grooming one massive paw like he was not a documented nightmare species. Ryan checked the angle, wiped dirt off his face, and hit record. Hey, command. Ryan Cole here. Not at the station yet. Terrain's slower than expected, so I'm taking it carefully. Still alive. Doing fine. Bruno yawned behind him, revealing teeth that could open vehicle armor. Ryan thumbed toward him. This is Bruno. Local Ursanthrax. Apex predator. We're camping together. Bruno rolled slightly onto one side. He's actually pretty chill once you establish boundaries and share snacks. Ryan smiled into the camera. I'll send environmental notes with this file. Spores are manageable. Water's treatable. Wildlife is dangerous but readable. Planet is challenging, not impossible. Bruno chose that moment to roll fully onto his back, all 6 limbs loose in the air. Ryan glanced over. Very professional, Bruno. He looked back at the camera. Anyway, I'll update when I reach the station. Call out. Hours later, on the Academy relay deck, Junior Communications Officer Thal nearly dropped his drink when the transmission opened. Within minutes, half the department crowded around the screen. A human cadet. Alive. Relaxed. Sitting beside a fire on Vought 7. With an Ursanthrax lounging behind him like an oversized pet. Commander Hayes arrived last. He watched the video once. Then again. Then he stared at the casualty report he had already drafted. Someone whispered, "He's petting a Death World predator." On screen, Ryan scratched Bruno behind one ear. Hayes closed the casualty file. "Get me a direct line to Cole," he said. Then, after a long pause, he added, "And someone call xenobiology before they think this is a prank." The Academy did not handle Ryan's transmission with dignity. That should be stated clearly. The official response was supposed to be calm verification, file review, environmental cross-checking, and a controlled update to command. Instead, 12 officers, 5 xenobiologists, 2 medical analysts, and 1 very confused cafeteria worker ended up crowded around the same display watching Ryan Cole scratch an Ursanthrax behind the ear. Commander Hayes watched in silence. Not because he was calm. Because his brain had temporarily refused to process what his eyes were showing him. The human cadet everyone had already classified as an expected casualty was sitting beside a campfire on Vought 7, casually explaining water filtration while a fully grown apex predator lounged behind him like a house pet. The first xenobiologist spoke in a whisper. "That creature has killed armored patrol units." A medical officer leaned closer. "He is not wearing a sealed environmental suit." "No," Hayes said. "He is breathing the atmosphere." "Yes." "And his skin is exposed." "Yes." "And he appears fine." Hayes rubbed both hands over his face. "That is the part we are all looking at." On screen, Ryan lifted a canteen. "So the water looks scary, but if you filter particulates, avoid the green algae blooms, boil it, and use Earth-grade purification tablets, it's honestly manageable. Tastes like metal and bad choices, but drinkable." The room stayed silent. Behind Ryan, Bruno rolled onto his back with all 6 limbs loose in the air. Ryan glanced back. "Bruno, nobody is going to respect you if you keep doing that." The Ursanthrax made a low rumble. Ryan looked at the camera. "He disagrees." The cafeteria worker whispered, "I like Bruno." Nobody asked why the cafeteria worker was there. At that point, hierarchy had collapsed. Hayes finally straightened. "Confirm signal origin." "Vought 7, Commander." "Confirm biometric data." "Human life signs stable." "Mild inflammation markers." "Elevated immune response." "Minor soft tissue strain." "Nothing critical." "Confirm predator classification." The xenobiologist swallowed. "Adult Ursanthrax. Estimated mass 800 to 900 pounds. Fully mature. Probably dominant local male." Hayes looked at the screen again. Ryan was now showing how he had built a raised food line between 2 trees so scavengers would not get into his supplies. Bruno watched with what looked like mild professional interest. Hayes exhaled. "Send the file to High Command." A pause. "And lock it under restricted review." That lasted 6 hours. The file leaked before dinner. Not intentionally at first. One xenobiologist forwarded it to a colleague with the message, "You need to tell me I am not hallucinating." That colleague forwarded it to a university research circle. Someone there clipped the part where Ryan said, "This isn't a death world, it's just Earth before plumbing," and posted it to a restricted academic forum. Restricted academic forums are where secrets go to die with citations. By the end of the next day, 3 science academies had seen it. By the end of the week, half the galactic network had watched Ryan Cole roast fish over a Vought 7 fire while Bruno waited patiently for his portion. The galaxy lost its collective mind. Educational channels played the footage with expert commentary. Military analysts debated whether humans had unknown predator-calming pheromones. Xenobiologists argued in public panels about whether Ryan had accidentally domesticated the most aggressive territorial species in the Vought 7 northern forest belt. Human diplomats received more meeting requests in 48 hours than they had received in the previous 2 years. And Ryan knew almost none of it. He was busy trying to stop Bruno from stealing his fishing line. On day 7, Ryan reached a wide river bend where the current slowed between black stones and hanging purple reeds. The water hissed faintly around mineral deposits. Bruno refused to enter at first, standing on the bank with his fur ridge lifted. Ryan crouched beside the water and tested it. High mineral content. Slight acid. No visible algae bloom. Bruno huffed. "You don't like it?" The predator looked toward the far bank. Ryan followed his gaze. Tracks. Large. Three-toed. Fresh. Ah. He packed up immediately. Good talk. That was what command analysts later called adaptive environmental deference. Ryan called it listening to the local bear dog shark thing because it clearly knew the neighborhood better than he did. By day 9, his transmissions had become regular. Not polished. Not strategic. Not heroic. Just Ryan, sweaty and mud-streaked, explaining survival problems with the tone of someone reviewing camping equipment. Today's lesson, he said in one video, holding up a torn boot. Do not step on blue vine mats. They look soft. They are not soft. They are angry. The camera tilted down to show Bruno sniffing the damaged boot and then sneezing. Exactly. Bad plant. Another update showed Ryan building a better shelter after a green lightning storm rolled through the canopy and turned one tree near camp into smoking glass. So, correction, he said, rain dripping from his hair. Do not camp under the tallest tree. I knew this. I ignored it because the roots looked comfortable. That was stupid. We update and move. Bruno appeared behind him carrying half the old torp in his mouth. Ryan turned. Thank you, but that is not helping. The galaxy loved it. Not because Ryan looked invincible. Because he did not. He made mistakes. He got rashes. He burned one batch of fish. He woke up one morning with purple insects trying to eat the glue from his pack straps. But every time Vought 7 pushed, Ryan adjusted. He did not treat the planet as an enemy. He treated it like a difficult host with strict rules. And that difference fascinated everyone. On the Academy's main discussion board, alien cadets began tracking his survival updates like tournament results. Day 10, still alive. Day 11, built fish trap. Day 12, Bruno accepted belly rubs. Day 13, discovered edible root after testing tiny amounts over 3 days. Day 14, taught Bruno to fetch fallen branches. That last update caused an argument in xenobiology that lasted 11 hours. Fetch behavior suggests social bonding. No, it suggests food association. The creature is bringing firewood. Predators do not bring firewood. This one does. Meanwhile, Ryan moved closer to the research station. The forest changed as he traveled. Trees thinned. Ground rose. The air became drier and colder. Old storm damage scarred the ridgelines. He found wreckage from one of the previous missions on day 15. Not bodies. The planet had already taken those back. Just pieces. A broken helmet. A snapped environmental suit joint. A rifle half buried in moss. Ryan crouched beside it for a long moment. The humor left his face. Bruno stood behind him, silent. Ryan cleaned mud from the helmet's nameplate. Lieutenant Archon Pell. Torian. Recovery Mission 11. Ryan placed the helmet upright against a stone. Then he activated his camera. His voice was quieter than usual. Command, I found remains of a prior recovery team. No bodies. Just equipment. I'm marking coordinates for retrieval if possible. He paused. I know people are making jokes about me camping out here. I've made some of them. But this place killed real people. They came here doing their jobs. They deserve respect. Across the galaxy, millions watched that transmission in a different silence. Not laughter. Not amazement. Respect. Ryan turned the camera toward the forest. I think part of the problem is they came here sealed off from the planet. Suits, drones, pre-packed systems. When those failed, they had no second relationship with the environment. He looked back at the helmet. I'm not better than them. I'm just compatible in different ways. And lucky. Don't forget lucky. Bruno pressed his massive head against Ryan's shoulder. Ryan exhaled slowly and scratched behind the predator's ear. Yeah. And I've got help. By day 17, the abandoned research station finally appeared through the trees. It rose from the clearing like a metal skeleton, half swallowed by purple vines and rust. Blast doors hung open. One off its track. Black scorch marks stained the entrance. Deep claw gouges cut through the outer plating. Ryan stopped at the tree line. Bruno stopped too. Then Bruno growled. Low. Warning. For 2 weeks, the Ursanthrax had followed Ryan through storms, rivers, ridge paths, and predator trails. Now he refused to enter the clearing. Ryan looked at the station. Then at Bruno. That bad, here? Bruno's ears flattened. Ryan checked his rifle charge. The mission marker blinked on his wrist display. Classified data cores inside. Objective close. Danger unknown. Ryan took one careful step forward. Bruno did not follow. Ryan stopped. He looked back at his massive companion, then at the dead station waiting in the clearing. All right, he said softly. We do this smart. He pulled out the camera and started recording. Command, I reached the station. Bruno does not like it, which means I do not like it either. Proceeding carefully. He paused at the edge of the clearing. The wind moved through the broken facility and made the open blast door groan like something breathing. Ryan raised his rifle. Camping part's over. Ryan entered the clearing like the station might object. Slow steps. Rifle low but ready. Eyes moving. Ground first. Door second. Roofline third. Tree line again. His grandfather had once told him that abandoned places were never empty. They were just occupied by things that did not introduce themselves. The research station proved the point immediately. The grass around it was wrong. Not dead. Flattened. Repeated movement had pressed trails through the purple moss near the blast doors, some old, some fresh enough that moisture still shone in the crushed stems. Ryan crouched. 3-toed tracks. Heavy. Not Bruno. Smaller than Bruno, but more numerous. Pack movement. He looked back. Bruno stood at the edge of the clearing with his fur raised and ears pinned flat. Yeah, Ryan muttered. I see it. The station entrance hung open like a broken jaw. One blast door had been torn halfway off its track. Not cut. Torn. Long gouges scored the metal where claws had punched through alloy and dragged downward. Ryan touched one mark with gloved fingers. Deep. Powerful. Recent enough to show bright metal under the oxidation. Whatever did this didn't need tools. He angled the camera toward it. Command, exterior damage suggests repeated animal entry. Doors compromised. Possible den behavior. Proceeding slow. The inside smelled worse. Old rot. Mold. Stale air. Chemical decay. And underneath that, the dry metallic ghost of blood. Emergency lights flickered along the ceiling, powered by solar backups that were somehow still alive. Shadows jumped every few seconds, making broken furniture look like crouched bodies. Ryan moved room by room. No rushing. No heroic stupidity. Main reception, overturned. Storage alcove, empty. Security post, clawed open. Wall terminal, cracked but powered. He found the first data pad under a collapsed chair. Screen cracked. Battery low. Still readable. Day 47. Supply ship delayed. Weather conditions prevent landing. We have enough sealed rations for 9 days. Ryan's jaw tightened. He saved the file. Further in, the main laboratory was worse. Specimen containers shattered across the floor. Dried biological matter in corners. Research boards covered in old notes about atmosphere toxicity, local fauna aggression, water acidity, and colonization impossibility. A large warning had been written across one wall in red emergency paint. Do not open at night. Ryan looked at it. Then at the claw marks on the inner door frame. Noted. He found more logs. Day 53. Jenkins developed respiratory reaction to fungal bloom. Medical filters failing. Day 61. Water filtration compromised. Local water unsuitable for our biology. 3 sick. Too unable to stand. Day 68. No council contact. We believe we have been abandoned. Ryan sat in the control room and read the last entry twice. Day 71. We will attempt local resource survival. Dr. Yennett believes some plants may be edible if processed. We should have studied adaptation earlier. There was no day 72. For the first time since landing, Ryan stopped making jokes. The station had not failed all at once. That was the ugly part. It had died slowly. Not because the team was stupid. Because their entire survival model depended on staying separate from the planet. Their own air. Their own food. Their own water. Their own suits. Their own sealed systems. And when those systems broke, Vought 7 did not become more hostile. It simply refused to become something else for them. Ryan looked around the control room. Dust. Broken panels. Dead chairs. A research station built like a shield against the world outside. You tried to make the planet leave you alone, he said quietly. The room gave no answer. He found the classified data cores exactly where the mission file said they would be, in a sealed vault behind the main lab. The vault still had power. Barely. Ryan bypassed the outer panel with his cutter, entered the recovery code, and waited while the locking ring groaned open. Inside were 6 black memory cores, each stamped with Coalition research seals. Mission objective. Recovered. He packed them carefully into a shockproof case, backed them up onto his portable drive, then backed them up again because trusting one copy was how people made museums out of mistakes. Command, he recorded, data cores secured. Repeat, mission objective secured. I also recovered multiple personal logs from the previous team. They need to go to their families. He paused. His voice lowered. They died trying to do their jobs. They were wrong about this place, but they weren't cowards. A sound echoed from the corridor. Soft. Wet. Clicking. Ryan killed the camera. Bruno growled outside, low enough that Ryan felt it through the floor. Ryan turned slowly toward the doorway. Something moved beyond the flickering emergency light. Not one thing. Several. Pale shapes slid through the hall, low to the ground, 6-limbed, narrow-headed, with translucent skin stretched over corded muscle. They looked like wolves designed by a cave system with no sympathy. Their noses twitched. Their claws clicked against the metal floor. Ryan counted 4. Then 6. Then more shadows behind them. Pack predators. Using the station as shelter. Or worse. As a hunting blind. Ryan backed toward the control room door and spoke softly. Wrong house, guys. The first creature lunged. Ryan fired once. The shot struck the floor in front of it, sparking hot metal and sound. Warning shot. The pack scattered sideways instead of retreating. Smart. Very bad. Ryan slammed the control room door shut and threw the manual lock. The creatures hit it from outside. Once. Twice. Metal bowed inward. Ryan scanned the room. Desk. Wires. Emergency power cell. Old ventilation duct. Broken chair legs. Chemical cabinet. Good enough. He dragged a metal desk against the door, wedged a chair frame beneath the handle, then yanked open the chemical cabinet. Most containers were expired. Some leaking. One label caught his eye. Capsaicin-based irritant sample. Earth import. Predator response study. Ryan blinked. Then smiled despite himself. Oh, you poor idiots. You had hot sauce research and still died here? The door buckled again. No time. He cracked the container, poured the irritant into a lab sprayer, added alcohol solvent, pressure sealed it, and shoved the nozzle through a small maintenance gap beside the door. The next time the pack hit the frame, Ryan sprayed. The corridor exploded in shrieks. The creatures recoiled violently, clawing at their faces, stumbling over each other as the chemical hit sensory membranes. Ryan opened the door just enough to throw a burning emergency flare into the hall. Fire and capsaicin did what bullets would not. They made the station deeply unpleasant. The pack fled. All except one. The largest remained at the end of the hall, blinking through pain, lips pulled back from needle teeth. Ryan raised his rifle. Outside, Bruno roared. The sound rolled through the station like thunder with teeth. The pale predator froze. Ryan looked past it toward the entrance. Bruno filled the doorway. Every muscle tense. Fur raised. Eyes green fire. The pale creature made one small, intelligent decision. It left. Ryan lowered the rifle. Bruno stepped inside slowly, sniffing the floor, then the air, then Ryan. "You came in." Bruno huffed. Ryan scratched his head. "Yeah. I know. Place is awful." Together, they cleared the station. Not quickly. Not bravely. Carefully. Ryan used flares and irritant spray to drive the remaining pack out through side exits. Bruno guarded the corridors and made it very clear that anything returning would be negotiating with him first. By sunset, the station belonged to them. More or less. Ryan stood in the main control room, exhausted, dirty, eyes burning from his own improvised chemical cloud. The power system still worked. The geothermal tap was stable. The outer walls were damaged but repairable. The kitchen had basic equipment. The sleeping quarters were disgusting but salvageable. The hydroponics bay was overgrown, but the frames were intact. This was not just a tomb. It was shelter. Maybe more than shelter. Ryan walked outside and sat beside Bruno at the tree line. The 3 moons were rising through violet clouds. "Here's the thing," he said. "This place killed people." Bruno rested his huge head near Ryan's shoulder. "But it doesn't have to stay a grave." The predator rumbled softly. Ryan looked back at the broken station. "We clean it. Air it out. Seal the doors. Move camp inside slowly. If you hate it, we leave." Bruno looked at the station. Then at Ryan. Then, with obvious reluctance, he stood and walked toward the entrance. At the doorway, Ryan stopped. "We go in together or not at all." Bruno sniffed the threshold, growled once at the building like it had personally offended him, and stepped inside. Ryan followed. That night, they slept in the control room with every door open to let fresh air move through the halls. Bruno slept between Ryan and the entrance. Ryan lay in his sleeping bag, staring at the faint emergency lights overhead. The mission was complete. The cores were secured. The dead had been documented. And somehow, the abandoned research station on the most feared planet in Academy records had become something no one expected. A base. Ryan smiled in the dark. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we start making this place livable." By the time Ryan sent his next transmission, the galaxy had already decided what the story was. Human cadet survives death world. Human befriends apex predator. Human recovers impossible mission objective. Human turns military suicide assignment into camping content. It was a good story. It was also incomplete. Ryan knew that the moment he sat in the cleaned control room of the old research station, camera balanced on a repaired console, Bruno sleeping behind him like a mountain with teeth. The data cores were safe. The mission was complete. But the real discovery was not inside the vault. It was in the logs. The previous team had not died because they were weak. They had died because every survival system they trusted had taught them the wrong relationship with Vault 7. Ryan started recording. "Hey, Command. Ryan Cole. Mission objective confirmed. Data cores recovered, copied, and secured." He held up the shockproof case. "Station is damaged but structurally usable. Geothermal power still works. Solar backup still works. Air is stale but clearing. I've started basic cleanup and perimeter checks." Bruno snored loudly. Ryan glanced back. Bruno approves the control room, mostly because he has claimed the doorway. He looked back into the camera. His face changed. Less casual. More careful. "I found the previous team's logs." He paused. They knew what they were doing. They were trained. They followed procedure. But procedure failed them because procedure assumed the environment was the enemy. The room behind him hummed softly with old power. Somewhere in the ventilation shaft, fresh forest air moved through filters Ryan had patched with top cloth, resin, and salvaged mesh. Their suits failed. Their sealed rations ran out. Their medical filters clogged. Their water system couldn't process the local chemistry. Once their imported systems broke, they had no backup relationship with the planet. He leaned closer. Vault 7 isn't uninhabitable. It's just selective. That sentence became the line everyone replayed. Not instantly. Not while Ryan said it. But later, when the transmission reached the Academy, then Command, then the Council feeds, that phrase moved like a spark through dry paper. Vault 7 isn't uninhabitable. It's just selective. Ryan continued. I'm not saying this place is safe. It isn't. The rain can ruin gear. The water needs treatment. Some plants are chemical nightmares. The predators are real. The station had a pack living inside it. Bruno opened one eye at the word predators. Ryan pointed back with his thumb. He helped with that. Bruno closed his eye again. But dangerous and impossible are not the same thing. He lifted one of the dead research team's data pads. I recommend the recovered personal logs be sent to the families. Respectfully. They deserve to know what happened. Then he took a breath. And I recommend the station not be abandoned again. With repairs, this could be a permanent base. Maybe not for most species. But for humans? Absolutely. He ended the transmission and queued it for upload. Then he got to work. Because statements were easy. Making the station livable was harder. The first problem was smell. Death, mold, chemical rot, predator musk, stale air. Ryan opened every exterior vent he could safely force. He burned old bedding outside. He dragged broken furniture into a pile for salvage. He cleaned the control room first, then the kitchen, then one sleeping room. Bruno supervised. Badly. He kept dragging useful things into the wrong pile and lying across doorways like a furry barricade. No, Ryan said, pulling a cable bundle from Bruno's paws. That is not bedding. That is power routing. Bruno huffed. I don't care if it smells interesting. By day 3 at the station, Ryan had created zones. Clean zone. Dirty zone. Do not touch unless you want a rash zone. Bruno zone, which was everywhere Bruno decided to be. He repaired one water condenser and tied it into his filtration setup. He rigged a rain catchment system outside with tarps and station piping. He cleaned a small kitchen unit and cooked his first real meal inside the station. Fish, boiled roots, and half a packet of seasoning he had begged from the quartermaster. He recorded the meal. Important survival note. If you bring seasoning, morale improves by about 400%. Bruno stared at the pan. No, this has spices. You won't like it. Bruno kept staring. Ryan sighed and cooked him an unseasoned piece. Fine. Diplomatic portion. That clip went viral faster than the mission report. Across 3 systems, beings who had never cared about humans watched a soft-skinned cadet cook dinner for the Deathworld predator who had adopted him. But the real shock came from the station tour. Ryan walked the camera through the facility as if he were showing a fixer-upper cabin. So this is the main lab. Currently a biohazard nightmare, but the benches are intact. I can convert this side into a workshop. He moved into the hydroponics bay. This is actually exciting. The prior team tried to grow imported food but kept everything sealed. I'm going to test mixed soil beds with local substrate and earth seeds once Command sends supplies. He pointed to the outer wall. Need better storm shutters here. Then the sleeping quarters. Terrible smell. Good layout. Then the control room. Main base for now. Bruno likes this corner. Bruno appeared in frame, lying beneath a console with his paws in the air. He is very committed to security. At the Academy, Commander Hayes watched the tour with both hands folded in front of his mouth. Around him, Command staff stood silent. The data cores were recovered. That alone should have ended the mission. But now Ryan was recommending permanent occupation of the most infamous death world in Academy records. One analyst whispered, he is remodeling it. Hayes nodded slowly. Yes. Should we order extraction? Hayes looked at the screen. Ryan was explaining how to reinforce doors using scrap metal and local resin. If I order extraction, he'll ask whether he can finish the repairs first. Nobody argued. High Command did not know how to respond. The official mission had expected death. Then recovery became success. Now success had become a strategic problem. If one underranked human cadet could survive Vought 7, restore a research station, document wildlife, and build a relationship with an apex predator, then the galaxy's entire Death World classification system was suspect. Vought 7 was not empty territory anymore. It was potential territory. And potential territory created politics. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session after Ryan's fifth station update. On the main screen, Ryan stood beside a river teaching viewers how to make a stone fish trap. Bruno sat beside him, occasionally placing rocks in the wrong spot. "No, buddy. That blocks flow. We need them to swim in, not file a complaint." The council chamber was silent. Ambassador Krell paused the video. 3 weeks ago, he said, this planet was classified as non-viable for all long-term settlement. Today, a human cadet is issuing fishing tutorials from its surface. A Vraxian delegate clicked anxiously. If humans can live on Vought 7, then they can live on hundreds of worlds currently classified as useless. The human diplomat at the far end of the chamber spoke calmly. Unclaimed worlds, yes. The room erupted. Resource rights. Security concerns. Colonization law. Ecological protections. Human expansion. Military implications. Everything Ryan had not meant to trigger exploded at once. The human diplomat waited until the noise thinned. Then said, "You are all asking who owns these worlds. Ryan Cole is asking how to live with one." That line silenced more delegates than expected. Back on Vought 7, Ryan had no idea his camping repairs had started a territorial panic. He was too busy clearing the hydroponics bay. A week later, he planted the first earth seeds in station soil mixed with treated local substrate. Tomatoes. Beans. Potatoes. Basil. Because optimism was useful and basil made bad food less depressing. He recorded the planting. If these grow, we'll know earth crops can adapt here with controlled soil mixing. If they die, I'll blame the beans. Bruno sniffed the basil tray and sneezed violently. Ryan nodded. Scientific review from local authority, negative. The first tomato sprout appeared 9 days later. Ryan stared at it longer than necessary. It was small. Green. Fragile. On a planet that had killed research teams and terrified military planners, one tiny earth plant had pushed through the soil. Ryan recorded it without jokes. "Command," he said softly, "we have growth." That clip became the new symbol. Not Bruno. Not the predator. Not the fire. The tomato sprout. Because for the first time, the galaxy understood what Ryan was really proving. Humans did not just survive harsh worlds. They made relationships with them. They learned the rules, adjusted the methods, respected the danger, and then built homes where others only saw graves. Ryan looked at the sprout, then at the purple forest outside the window. Bruno rested beside him, massive and calm. The research station lights glowed warmer now. Less tomb. More shelter. And somewhere far above, the galaxy was beginning to realize the human cadet they had written off as dead had not merely completed a mission. He had opened a frontier. The Galactic Council did not panic publicly. Public panic was considered undignified. So instead, 40 species gathered inside the Central Council chamber, arranged themselves beneath ceremonial banners of cooperation, activated emergency legal protocols, and began arguing loudly enough to shake the translation system. That was diplomatic panic. On the main screen, Ryan Cole stood beside a river on Vought 7, sleeves rolled up, boots sunk into purple mud, explaining how to build a fish trap while Bruno sat behind him like a living siege engine with fur. Ryan placed a stone carefully into the stream. "The trick is not to block the whole river," he said on the recording. "You're not trying to conquer the fish. You're trying to politely inconvenience them." Bruno leaned forward and dropped a massive rock directly in the wrong place. Ryan stared at him. "No. That is not polite. That is infrastructure collapse." Several junior aides in the council chamber laughed before realizing nobody senior had given permission. Ambassador Krell paused the video. The image froze on Ryan pointing at Bruno like a disappointed schoolteacher while the most dangerous predator on Vought 7 looked mildly proud of itself. Krell turned to the chamber. 3 weeks ago, Vought 7 was listed as non-viable. 12 missions failed. The latest human candidate was marked as an expected casualty. He gestured toward the frozen screen. He is now producing educational survival recordings, restoring the abandoned station, cultivating Earth vegetation, and apparently training an Ursanthrax to assist with manual labor. A Vraxian representative clicked all 4 mandibles. That animal has killed military personnel. Yes, Krell said. It is moving rocks for him. Yes. That should not be possible. The human diplomat seated near the lower ring folded her hands. Human history contains many examples of dangerous animals becoming cooperative under the correct conditions. The Vraxian stared at her. You domesticated predators? Several. Why? The human diplomat looked at the paused image of Bruno. Sometimes they were useful. Sometimes they were cute. The translators handled the words correctly. The chamber did not. A Taurian delegate raised all 4 arms. This is not about one animal. If humans can operate comfortably on Vought 7, then hundreds of worlds previously considered unusable may become viable settlement targets. Unclaimed settlement targets, the human diplomat corrected. That made the chamber erupt again. Unclaimed worlds were the quiet foundation of galactic balance. Everyone knew they existed. Everyone ignored them because nobody could live there without spending more on survival systems than the planet was worth. Death worlds were marked, catalogued, fenced in by fear, and left alone. But if humans could live on them with fishing line, fire pits, stubbornness, and a talent for befriending murder animals, then the old maps were wrong. And old maps being wrong was how wars started. A mineral consortium representative spoke next. Vought 7 contains rare geothermal compounds, heavy metals, and bioactive plant chemistry. If humans establish exclusive settlement, resource access becomes restricted. The human diplomat's expression cooled. Vought 7 killed your research team because your corporations treated it as an extraction problem. That is inflammatory. It is documented. Ambassador Krell raised one hand before the argument spread. What is Earth's position? The human diplomat stood. Earth's position is that Ryan Cole completed his assigned recovery mission. He recovered the cause. He documented the prior team. He submitted ecological warnings, settlement risks, and a proposal for careful human habitation. Careful habitation, someone repeated skeptically. Yes. Not strip mining. Not military seizure. Not corporate occupation. Habitation. A military advisor from the upper ring leaned forward. You expect the Council to believe humans will simply ignore the strategic advantage of worlds only they can occupy. The human diplomat looked up at him. No. I expect the Council to understand that strategic advantage does not require stupidity. That earned silence. She continued. Humans can live in harsh environments. That does not mean we should destroy them. Ryan's own reports are clear. Adapt to the environment, do not force the environment to break for you. On screen, Ryan's frozen face still pointed sternly at Bruno. The irony was not lost on anyone. Back at the academy, Commander Hayes watched the council debate from his office and looked older by the minute. High Command had sent 17 requests in 2 days. Full environmental reports. Medical scans. Predator interaction logs. Colonization feasibility. Psychological profile. Risk classification. Potential extraction timeline. Ryan responded to all of them with shocking cooperation and absolutely no urgency. His latest reply arrived in video form. Naturally. Hayes opened it. Ryan stood inside the cleaned research station control room. The walls had been scrubbed. Equipment panels glowed again. Through a cracked but reinforced window, purple forest swayed in the wind. Hey, Commander. Got your message? Yes, I can send more formal reports. Already attached atmospheric tolerance notes, water treatment procedures, common edible plant testing, and Bruno interaction observations. Bruno appeared behind him carrying what looked like half a tree. Ryan turned. Outside, buddy. Bruno stopped. Ryan pointed toward the door. The giant predator huffed, turned around, and dragged the branch back out. Ryan faced the camera again. Sorry. We're working on indoor rules. Hayes stared at the screen. Ryan continued. About the extraction offer, I appreciate it. Really? But I'd like to stay. Hayes closed his eyes. There it was. I know the mission objective is done, Ryan said. But the station is viable. Power works. I've got water treatment stabilized. First tomato sprouts came up. Local predator traffic is manageable now that Bruno's claimed the area. And honestly, this place needs someone here who respects it. He stepped closer to the camera. The previous team's conclusion was wrong, but I understand why they made it. They tried to survive by keeping Vault 7 outside. I'm trying to survive by learning how to belong inside it. Hayes replayed that sentence 3 times. Then forwarded the file to High Command with one note. Do not order extraction unless you want your best accidental field researcher to resign out of spite. High Command did not enjoy the note. But they understood it. Because by then Ryan's reports had become scientifically priceless. His casual vlogs had produced more applicable data on Vault 7 in weeks than formal surveys had produced in decades. Which plants caused contact burns? Which spores were seasonal? Which watercolors indicated dangerous algae? Which predators avoided fire? Which predators respected territory markers? Which insects ate adhesive? Which moss could insulate bedding if dried first? Which root tasted like pepper and which root caused 3 hours of regret? The galaxy watched a human not defeat a death world, but translate it. That was what changed everything. A week later, the council session reconvened. This time, the main screen showed Ryan's newest transmission. He stood beside a patch of cleared ground near the station, showing 3 possible settlement layouts drawn on a portable display. Initial colony should be small, he said. No more than 50 people. Survival trained. No heavy industry until ecological impact studies are complete. We start with water, food, shelter, medical, and mapping. Then we expand only if the planet tolerates us. The Vraxian delegate stared. He speaks as if the planet has authority. The human diplomat smiled faintly. From Ryan's perspective, it does. That disturbed the council more than arrogance would have. Arrogance could be contained. Respect was harder to argue against. By the end of the session, 3 things became clear. First, humans had a lawful claim to request settlement rights on Vault 7 because the world was unclaimed and Ryan had established continuous habitation. Second, Earth would not accept corporate stripping rights without ecological review. Third, every species that had ignored Earth now wanted a meeting. Not because humans had conquered anything. Because they had revealed a category of value no one else could safely access. Death worlds were no longer empty marks on maps. They were potential human frontiers. Back on Vault 7, Ryan celebrated the political breakthrough by fixing a roof leak. He did not know the council had spent 9 hours arguing over his settlement rights. He did not know 3 corporations had offered him advisory contracts. He did not know a children's education network had requested official permission to use Bruno clips in school programming. He was standing on top of the station with sealant on his hands, rain in his face, and Bruno below holding the ladder steady by lying against it. Appreciate the help, Ryan called down. Bruno sneezed. Yeah, I know. Rain has opinions. That night, he recorded another update. The control room looked almost home-like now. A repaired lamp. Maps on one wall. Cores secured in a case. A shelf of interesting rocks. Tomato sprouts under a grow light. Bruno asleep near the door. Ryan sat in front of the camera, tired but content. Hey, Command. Quick update. Station roof mostly sealed. Hydroponics stable. Bruno has learned the word outside, but only respects it if he agrees emotionally. He smiled, then grew more serious. I heard there's debate about what Vault 7 means. I'm not a diplomat, so maybe this is above my pay grade. But I'll say this. He looked toward the window. Purple forest moved beyond the glass. This planet isn't a prize. It's not a trophy. It's not proof humans are better. It's a place. A living place. We can survive here because we adapt, but adaptation starts with humility. Bruno snored. Ryan glanced back and smiled. Mostly humility. Then he looked into the camera again. If humans come here, we come as students first. Settlers second. Anything else would be repeating the same mistake that killed the station. Across the galaxy, that clip spread faster than every council statement. Because it gave the political shock a moral center. Humans were not just dangerous because they could live where others died. They were dangerous because the best of them knew survival did not mean domination. And that made partnership possible. It also made humanity impossible to ignore. Within a month, Earth's diplomatic calendar filled completely. Within 2 months, human survival consultants were invited to survey 6 classified death worlds. Within 3, academy enrollment requests from human colonies tripled. And on Vought 7, Ryan Cole, former expected casualty, bottom-half tactical student, accidental political incident, watered his tomatoes, cooked fish for himself and Bruno, and kept sending reports. The galaxy had expected a corpse. It got a frontier doctrine. And it had no idea what to do with that. Ryan Cole was promoted by accident. At least, that was how he described it. Officially, the document from High Command called it a recognition of exceptional field performance, mission success under hostile conditions, unprecedented xenobiological contribution, and strategic frontier initiative. Ryan read the first paragraph twice and decided whoever wrote it had never met him. Bruno sat beside the control room window chewing on a branch thick enough to qualify as furniture. Ryan looked at him. Apparently, I'm exceptional. Bruno cracked the branch in half with his jaws. Yeah, that's what I thought. The promotion changed very little on Vought 7. The rain still stung. The pipes still leaked. The station power coupler still made a concerning grinding noise every 3rd morning. The purple forest still produced new things Ryan did not understand, most of which either crawled, smelled, or tried to attach themselves to his boots. But outside Vought 7, everything changed. Lieutenant Ryan Cole was now officially assigned as primary administrator of Vought 7 research operations. That title sounded ridiculous for a man whose morning routine included scraping fungal growth off a water intake with a cooking knife. But High Command needed language for what he had become. Not just survivor. Not just cadet. Not just mission success. Founder. That word made Ryan deeply uncomfortable. He preferred camper. Camper had fewer meetings. The first formal supply drop arrived 2 weeks after his promotion. Ryan stood in the clearing with Bruno at his side as the automated cargo pod descended through the canopy and landed with a hiss of steam. He opened the manifest. Fishing line. Replacement filters. Medical supplies. Hydroponic trays. Seeds. Sealant. A better antenna. 2 crates of protein bars. And, inexplicably, a box labeled Bruno enrichment items. Ryan opened it. Inside were reinforced chew blocks, heavy-duty scent puzzles, and something called a predator-safe play sphere. Bruno sniffed the sphere, tapped it once with a paw, and sent it rolling into a tree hard enough to dent the bark. Ryan watched it bounce. Well, they tried. He recorded the supply review for command, partly because they had requested inventory confirmation and partly because the galaxy seemed to enjoy watching Bruno misunderstand objects. Supply drop received. Everything looks good. Tell whoever sent Bruno toys that he approves aggressively. Bruno picked up the play sphere and carried it proudly into the forest. Ryan pointed after him. That's gone forever. More transmissions followed. Not just reports now. Plans. Settlement maps. Hazard indexes. Recommended human skill requirements. Minimum medical support. Predator boundaries. Water treatment rules. Do not touch plant catalog. Do not touch unless you enjoy screaming plant catalog. A separate file titled Things Bruno Knows Before I Do. That one became mandatory reading in 3 xenobiology programs. Ryan's proposed first colony was small. 50 people maximum. No corporations. No mining operations. No luxury dome investors looking to sell Deathworld adventure estates to rich idiots. He wrote that phrase in an early draft. Commander Hayes advised revising it. Ryan changed it to unprepared recreational settlement parties. Hayes sent back, better. The first visitors were not settlers. They were researchers. 3 humans and 1 extremely nervous Taurian xenobiologist who insisted on wearing a reinforced environmental suit despite Ryan's recommendation to use lighter gear. Ryan met them at the landing zone. Bruno stood beside him, massive and calm. The Taurian froze halfway down the pod ramp. Ryan waved. "Welcome to Vought 7. Don't run from Bruno. Don't stare too hard. Don't smell like fear if you can help it." The Taurian made a small choking sound. Dr. Asha Patel, the human xenobiologist leading the visit, grinned. "That's the official safety briefing." "No. The official one has 14 pages. This is the useful one." Bruno stepped forward and sniffed each visitor carefully. The humans held still. The Taurian trembled so hard his suit servos whined. Bruno sneezed once and walked away. Ryan nodded. "He says you're fine." The Taurian whispered, "That was judgment." "Yeah. But favorable judgment." For 3 weeks, the research team stayed at the station. They studied water systems, soil chemistry, predator movement, Bruno's social behavior, and Ryan's increasingly strange ability to tell weather changes by the smell of the moss. Patel watched him one morning as he adjusted storm shutters before any sensor warning triggered. "How did you know?" Ryan looked toward the forest. Bird things stopped arguing. "That's your metric. Works better than the station barometer." The storm arrived 40 minutes later. Patel wrote 6 pages about it. By the end of the visit, even the Taurian had stopped flinching every time Bruno entered the room. Mostly. On his last day, he stood in the station doorway looking out at the forest. "This place is not peaceful," he said. Ryan stood beside him. "No. But it is not hostile either." Ryan smiled. "Exactly." The Taurian looked at him. "Our reports called it a death world." "Your reports were written by people trying not to die here." "And yours?" "Mine are written by someone trying to live here." That distinction became the foundation of the Vought 7 settlement charter. Live with the planet. Do not break it to fit you. Respect predator territories. Build around water, not over it. Harvest lightly. Expand slowly. Every colonist must complete wilderness training before arrival. Every child born on Vought 7 must learn local ecology before formal history. Every settlement must maintain human comfort without destroying planetary balance. When the first permanent colonists finally arrived 1 year after Ryan's landing, there were only 5 of them. All human. All survival trained. All slightly insane in the specific way frontier people often are. Ryan liked them immediately. Bruno did not. At first. He stood beside Ryan at the landing clearing, enormous and suspicious, while the new settlers stepped down one by one. A mechanic named June Alvarez. A botanist named Omar Singh. A medic named Lena Brooks. A structural engineer named Pavel Orlov. And a young surveyor named Nia Carter who stared at Bruno with open awe. Ryan raised a hand. "Everyone, this is Bruno. Bruno, these are our new neighbors. Be nice." Bruno sniffed June. Accepted Omar. Ignored Pavel. Sneezed on Lena. Then stopped in front of Nia. Nia slowly opened one hand. Inside was a protein bar. Ryan closed his eyes. "Who told you?" Nia said, "I watched the videos." Bruno delicately took the bar from her hand. Ryan pointed at her. "That is bribery." Nia smiled. "That is diplomacy." Bruno accepted her immediately. So did Ryan. The first settlement was not impressive. 6 housing units. 1 repaired research station. A hydroponics bay. Water tanks. A tool shed. A perimeter not meant to keep nature out, but to remind humans where their responsibility began. They named it First Camp. Ryan hated the name for exactly 2 days. Then a storm hit, everyone survived. Bruno slept under the main porch, and the name felt earned. Within 6 months, the colony was producing enough vegetables to reduce supply dependence. Within 8, they had mapped 3 safe fishing zones, 2 storm shelters, and 1 area officially labeled absolutely not worth it. Within a year, children's networks across the galaxy were broadcasting approved Bruno clips in ecology lessons. That bothered Bruno not at all. Because Bruno did not understand fame. He understood snacks, territory, weather, and the small human settlement he had apparently decided belonged under his protection. The galaxy kept trying to make Ryan into a symbol. He resisted badly. Interviews annoyed him. Ceremonies bored him. The phrase pioneer of Death World colonization made him visibly uncomfortable. I went camping, he kept saying. Commander Hayes visited during the second year. Retired now. Gray-haired. Still tired. But smiling more. He stood on the station porch beside Ryan as 3 moons rose over the forest and Bruno's distant roar echoed from the trees. You know, Hayes said, there are 40 human-led Death World survey programs now. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Good for them. They're using your model. Hope they improved it. You changed the galaxy. Ryan looked toward the settlement lights. June arguing with a water pump. Omar checking plant beds. Nia laughing as a small Bruno cub tried to steal her glove. I sent videos, Ryan said. Hayes shook his head. You showed them the difference between surviving a place and belonging to it. Ryan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, that sounds better than pioneer. It is. Use that in the reports. Hayes laughed. For once, Ryan did not record anything. He just sat under the alien sky, listening to human voices mix with Vought 7 night calls, watching the place everyone had called a death world become something warmer, stranger, and more alive than any academy hall had ever felt. He had been sent there because regulations required someone to try. He stayed because the planet answered. And now others had come not to conquer it, but to learn how to call it home. 5 years after Ryan Cole landed on Vought 7, the old Academy assignment board displayed a new category. Death World Settlement Rotation. The cadets gathered around it in complete silence. Not the same silence Ryan had heard years earlier when Vought 7 meant death sentence. This silence was different. Not fear. Reverence. There were now human-led research colonies on 43 hostile worlds previously classified as unusable. Not all were successful. Some had failed. Some had been evacuated. Some had humbled teams who thought Ryan's story meant harsh planets were easy. Ryan hated that misunderstanding. Vought 7 had never been easy. It had simply been possible. And possible, in human hands, was dangerous enough. The colony of First Camp had grown from 6 humans and 1 judgmental Earthsanthrax into a real settlement of 212 people. Small by galactic standards. Enormous by Ryan's. There were now proper houses near the station, built on raised foundations to protect the moss beds beneath them. There were gardens, water systems, storm shelters, research labs, a schoolroom, and a medical clinic that smelled faintly of antiseptic and basil because the hydroponics bay had escaped its assigned boundaries. Children ran between buildings wearing rain hoods and mud boots. Not carelessly. Vought 7 punished careless. But confidently. They knew which flowers not to touch. They knew which bird calls meant storm pressure. They knew Bruno's territory markers. They knew the forest was not enemy ground. It was neighbor ground. Bruno was older now. Still massive. Still terrifying to visitors. But slower in the shoulders, silver streaking his blue-black fur, more tolerant of small humans climbing over him than any scientific paper could explain without sounding emotionally compromised. His cubs had become legends. One lived near the southern water station and guarded fishing crews in exchange for smoked riverfish. Another had bonded with Nia Carter so thoroughly that official documents referred to him as unlicensed but tolerated perimeter support. Ryan had argued that was not a legal category. The Colony Council created it anyway. On the 5th anniversary of landing, Commander Hayes stood beside Ryan on the porch of the original research station. Retired. Content. Holding a mug of coffee grown from experimental Earthfort hybrid beans that tasted terrible but symbolized progress, which unfortunately did not improve flavor. Hayes watched children chase each other near the settlement lights. You ever think about the assignment board? Ryan leaned against the railing. Sometimes. They expected a casualty. Technically, I still am. Just administratively delayed. Hayes gave him a look. Ryan smiled. Old habits. Below the porch, Bruno lifted his head from where he rested in the moss. A little girl named Mara placed a flower crown badly across one of his ears. Bruno tolerated it with the expression of a predator reconsidering every life choice. Hayes looked at the scene. You changed more than one planet. Ryan shook his head. No. The galaxy changed because it saw the map was wrong. And who showed them? Ryan did not answer immediately. The forest beyond First Camp glowed with faint bioluminescent threads. 3 moons hung above the canopy. The air smelled of rain, soil, smoke, and food cooking somewhere near the communal hall. Finally, he said, Vought 7 did. Hayes sighed. You are impossible to praise. Efficient trait. That evening, Ryan recorded his anniversary update. The camera stood on the same repaired console he had used for his first station transmission. Behind him, the control room looked nothing like the tomb he had found. Maps covered one wall. A children's drawing of Bruno stealing tomatoes hung beside the weatherboard. Shelves held labeled rock samples, old field knives, seed jars, and a framed copy of the original expected casualty report that Ryan insisted was funny and Hayes insisted was morbid. Ryan sat in his old chair. Bruno lay in the background, flower crown still on one ear because nobody had dared remove it. Hey, everyone. Ryan Cole here, 5 years after landing on Vought 7. He paused. Outside the window, First Camp lights glowed warm against the violet dark. When I arrived, this place was listed as uninhabitable. 12 missions had failed. The station was abandoned. The file said the planet killed everything. He smiled faintly. The files were wrong. But not because the planet was safe. He leaned forward. They were wrong because they asked the wrong question. They asked, can our systems survive here? They did not ask, can we learn this place well enough to belong? That line would be quoted for generations. Ryan did not know that. He continued. There is no such thing as a death world in the way people used to mean it. There are worlds that do not care about your assumptions. Worlds that punish arrogance. Worlds that require different approaches. Bruno snored. Ryan glanced back. And sometimes worlds that come with large local supervisors. He turned serious again. Humans did not win Vought 7. We did not tame it. We did not conquer it. We adapted to it. We listened. We made mistakes, updated, respected boundaries, and built slowly. He looked toward the window. Home is not something you take from a place. It is something you negotiate with it every day. Across the galaxy, billions watched. Cadets at the academy. Diplomats in council chambers. Children in classrooms. Settlers on new hostile worlds. Species who had once treated humans as useful but minor. Now they studied human methods. Not because humans were invincible. Because humans had proven something more disruptive. A world did not have to be gentle to become home. Ryan's final words in the transmission were simple. Stay curious. Respect the place you're in. And if everyone says something is impossible, check whether they mean impossible for everyone or just impossible for them. He ended the recording. Then Bruno stood, shook himself, and sent the flower crown flying into Ryan's coffee. Ryan stared at the cup. Really? Bruno huffed and walked outside. Ryan looked at the dead camera. Good thing I already ended that. But the camera had not fully stopped. That clip became the most replayed part of the anniversary message. Years later, First Camp became the capital settlement of Vought 7. Not huge. Not polished. Never fully civilized in the fragile galactic sense. It remained muddy, beautiful, dangerous, and alive. Exactly as Ryan preferred. Human colonies spread carefully across other harsh worlds, each one following the Vought 7 principle. Adapt before expansion. Respect before extraction. Belong before ownership. Ryan Cole's name appeared in textbooks, academy doctrine files, colonization charters, and children's ecology programs. He hated most of the formal wording. He approved every Bruno illustration. When people called him the man who conquered a death world, he corrected them every time. I didn't conquer anything, he would say. I moved in politely. And somehow, that became the real legend. Not the mission. Not the promotion. Not even Bruno. The legend was that humanity looked at worlds the galaxy had abandoned and saw not graves, not trophies, not impossible frontiers, but neighbors. Difficult neighbors. Dangerous neighbors. Neighbors that required humility, patience, tools, fire, fishing line, and occasionally protein bars for the local apex predator. The galaxy had expected humans to dominate harsh worlds. Instead, humans did something stranger. They learned to belong. And once they learned that, no map in the galaxy was ever the same again. So what do you think? Was Ryan Cole exceptional? Or did the galaxy finally discover what humans are like when they stop trying to fit into gentle places? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want more powerful HFY stories, Death World survival legends, alien frontier colonies, and humans turning impossible places into home, subscribe to the channel and stay locked in. Because somewhere out there is another world everyone calls uninhabitable. And one human already packing fishing gear.